anything. I'm going to read straight from the material that you have shared with me. Sorry about that, but today's presentation is going to be fostering student voice, agency, and engagement in educational research with a question mark. So we will be talking about exploring Photovoice methodology used with youth in alternative education settings. And just to give you a little bit of background about Sara Lannin is a PhD student here at UCD, the School of Education. She's also a research and policy officer in the housing and homeless charity sector in Ireland. Sara is currently on an innovative employment-based program funded by Research Ireland, which is a very well-known research organization here. It's the only one here in Ireland, both developing research in the NGO factor and working towards her PhD. Through using participatory action research methods, the focus of her PhD is on exploring access and engagement to education for youth in underserved communities with a specific focus on youth homelessness prevention. Her ongoing research is complemented by her existing educational background with the bachelor's in psychology and the master in science in education, children, and youth from UCD here at School of Education. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Olga and Carla. Always excited to talk research and to kind of always practice my presentation skills and talk about my PhD as well. So what I could do here then is I could share my screen and I could share the presentation if we'd like to start with that. Great.
Perfect, yeah. Are you able to do that, Sara?
Yes, I should be able to. So share screen. Perfect. So everyone can see my screen here?
Oh. Yes, we can see the general view here. If you can put it into the presentation mode.
Perfect. Can you see it now?
We can still see the slides now.
Okay, hold on. Let's see. Share this window.
That's perfect, yeah.
Perfect. Great. And I will. Great. Oh, actually, sorry, I've lost everybody.
I think you can use the presenter mode or something like that.
Oh, okay. This is also part of my learning, is definitely enhancing my tech skills. Okay, I've got everybody here. So yes, Olga, thank you so much for introducing me. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about the methodologies, well, part of the methodology that I've used for my PhD. And just to give you a bit of background. So the overarching PhD is looking at navigating youth homelessness and supporting access and engagement with education. So across the globe, there's a lot of different countries where they're experiencing increasing levels of youth homelessness. But something to keep in mind is how young people start to experience homelessness, different forms of homelessness. And with that, it's all about how young people are being counted. And just looking at Ireland specifically, the government publish youth homelessness figures every month. And these figures here I have up until 2024. And if you just look at figure 1 here, you've got the blue figure here. It's approximately 1,500 young people between the ages of 18 to 24. And in the grand scheme of things, that looks like a very small number. But when you look at graph 2 over here, you've got that it's actually the highest proportion of youth are experiencing homelessness compared to the 25 to 24-year-old group, the 45 to 64, the 65-year-old plus. And within these figures, actually, what you'll see appears that we've got pathways into homelessness. And so young people will start at home, they'll start couch surfing, they'll go home again, couch surfing with relatives and at home. And then they'll end up in homeless shelters. And these figures here are only showing young people's experiences once they go into homeless shelters. So what we can see here is that homelessness is starting at much younger ages. And what happens there as well is young people will start to disengage from services, including education. But for young people, education is one of the areas, and I'm not biased here doing a PhD in education, is an area that can really offer the right supports to firstly prevent youth homelessness and also intervene in it. So with that in mind, next slide. My research is with Peter McVerry Trust. So it's a housing and homelessness charity in Ireland, and they run 2 alternative learning centres for young people between the ages of 12 to 17 who are no longer in mainstream settings for a wide variety of reasons, and they've been identified as vulnerable to falling into homelessness or are actively experiencing homelessness episodes. And it's really important to look at these learning environments because there's very little research within an Irish context of the intersection here between the youth homelessness prevention in the young people and the educational settings in alternative learning environments. So the Department of Education brought out a review of all the alternative learning environments in 2022 for this specific age group, and there was 22 settings. And of those 22 settings, these are 2 educational learning environments that are specifically focused on youth homelessness prevention as well. So what we did over the past 2 years was work with these young people in these 2 different sites in the greater Dublin area. And we explored what's going on in these learning centres, what are the variables or factors that support their engagement with education, and what are the barriers for them engaging in education. So it's 33 young people. All the young people were disengaged from mainstream settings for a variety of reasons, and their lived experiences then were influenced by also involvement with the criminal justice system, including parental incarceration, a wide range of additional educational support needs, and including on waiting on assessments as well, and or involvement with child protection services. And originally my plan, and this is what we were looking at, was giving as much choice and as much option as possible for the young people to participate in the research. So we're looking at a mosaic approach, which was kind of using a variety of visual and participatory methods, so using drawings, mappings, and observations, and also using Photovoice and blending the 2 together. So looking at a combination of photography and narrative storytelling to foster the students' voices. And these were kind of, before we kind of go on to the actual implementation of the method, these were kind of the 5 pillars that I was focusing on in kind of building this strong framework before we went in with the young people. And I was looking at building relationships with all the stakeholders, with the staff, with the parents, and like ensuring youth engagement and assent and the guardian consent and environment. So looking at the physical and the social environments of where where we were actually going to implement the project, and project accessibility. And all of these kind of intersected to be able to kind of create workshops that we were able to adapt for the young people and from their expressed needs. So this is where we get on to the implementation. And this is my planned sessions, and I have planned here in quotation marks because this was what I thought was going to be very straightforward experiences of working with these young people. I had session 1, session 2, session 3, and every session was almost planned down to the last minute. And so in the first session, we used a prompt, and our plan was to create a guidebook for incoming students. So a friend will be attending your learning centre next year, and what would you show them to help them prepare? The second session was going to be photographs are brought back to your students. The reasons for taking the images and groupings of the images are explored. And session 3 was going to be bringing back the transcripts for the young people and creating an ideal learning centre. So bringing in loads of arts and crafts supplies, and seeing what their perfect or their ideal learning environment would look like. And as you can probably predict, everything did not go to plan, and it was not as straightforward as that. And each of from the first session, it was navigating how the young people were getting on, talking to them about what they wanted to do for the next sessions, if they were happy with the plan or if they wanted to change it. And these are just, as I'm talking about how we adapted and navigating, I just put down some little points here, because if anyone's interested in using the Photovoice methodology, these are some of the realities and challenges that we encountered while we were rolling out the project. So the first part was we had this prompt, and the young people were really excited and really engaged, because it was going to, some people actually did have friends coming into the learning center, so they could imagine, okay, this is what, these are the things that are really great in here. These are the things that like aren't so great. And so they had, some of them had visual representations of who they were talking to when they were doing this project. And so even just to start off with, it's considering whether or not you're using disposable cameras or digital cameras. And I gave the option of both. And it was almost my own bias there, but I thought, oh, everybody's going to want the digital cameras. They're so cool and they're so novel. Whereas everybody actually loved the disposable cameras. And so thankfully I had enough, but it's just something to keep in mind. But one of the things was with the digital cameras, the haptics of it and pressing the buttons, some of the children actually struggled with that and preferred the disposable cameras. And then with the dictaphones, so they had the option of going around and talking about the learning centres. And if you say to any 12 to 15-year-old, this button, don't touch this button because it's going to turn off the dictaphone, sometimes they're going to still press the buttons. So something just to keep in mind. And even if, I don't know if you can find dictaphones with different kind of haptics, that might work better in different situations. And then just the lived realities of being kind of in a school environment setting and trying to navigate disruptions of other young people wanting to do the activity at the same time, or other people disrupting other classroom environments. So we did have kind of really small groups, and there was clear instructions and kind of agreements put in place before we started the project. And then the staff involvement, just something, some staff really want to be engaged in the project, other staff not as much so, but it's the young people's project. So I had, say, some staff saying, oh, take a picture of this, and pointing at things, or kind of trying to guide the young students in what they should be taking photos of. So it was me then also navigating the dynamics there and trying to kind of make sure that it was the youth's voices and the youth's decisions of the photos that they were taking. So then the next part was going to bring the photos back and kind of look at all the photos. And what happened here was that you gave the young people their photo deck, and they automatically started grouping it into what they wanted their guidebook to look like. So I didn't want to disrupt this process, and I didn't want to say, no, we're going to look at these photos individually. We're going to look at them one by one, explain these photos to me. So it kind of organically started that they started building their own guidebook. And with that, then we were kind of going around to different people and talking about it. And then at the end of the session, we were looking at how everybody would like the guidebook to be created. And from that, then I took pictures of all of the ways that they've grouped the photos. And then I tried my best to merge it so that the structure of their guidebook would mirror what the majority of the young people wanted in the guidebook to look like. And then just looking at the group dynamics. So from the first session, we were able to see some young people work better with other people. Some people were more comfortable expressing themselves or not expressing themselves. So we were able to kind of look at, and this was also working with the staff on site as well, saying, well, these young people would work well together, and these people, maybe keep them in separate groups. And then it was also different engagement capacities. So this was also coming back to additional learning needs. So some of the young people would be in and out of school system. There's one young person, and a quote always sticks with me, was that I didn't go into school for 3 years and now I come in here every single day. So there was there's different engagement capacities. And so reflecting on that, going into the third session, there was very little interest in me bringing back all the transcripts and reading and sitting down with everybody and saying, how would you title this picture? What would you use? What would you want to name this picture based off what you've already said? And what they were actually they were really interested in the guidebook itself, and they weren't interested in creating an ideal learning center. So what we ended up doing was actually developing a mock-up of a universal guidebook, and so that all the different kids in all the different groups could actually see the book and talk about whether there's similarities or whether there's differences in their experiences, and whether or not they wanted pictures included. And So that was kind of an example of how we adapted the process as we went on based off the young people's desires and wishes as well. So this is just a mock-up of what the guidebook looked like. And so there were so many pictures taken of the outdoors, not as much taken of the classwork. There was a lot of pictures taken of the staff as well. And something that we could maybe discuss as well is around the ethics. And so the students really wanted their pictures and wanted their faces involved in the guidebooks as well. But as part of the ethics that it had to maintain anonymous. And then the pictures in the school. And I suppose what this guidebook did was it really, we've built up these relationships with the young people throughout the time that we were there, and they felt comfortable talking to us about their experiences. So if you see, I don't know if you can see my little pointy thing, but say down here, they took pictures of the cameras, and we were talking about, well, how does that make you feel? Why? And they felt like that they were being watched all the time and that they didn't feel trusted. And then say, for example, here we've got a picture of the toilet. And I was saying, are you sure you want pictures of the toilets and what's going on in the toilets? And they're like, oh, well, that's where we go and vape sometimes. So it was just kind of, I'd like to think that anyways, that it was very open and honest conversations about their experiences in these environments. So just going on to kind of some methodological considerations while using this method. And what I tried to do was emphasize the research with the participants and follow their lead throughout the process. And then also navigating student attendance and times for involvement in the project. So again, attendance, some people were on different schedules and on different programs. So I would kind of go in and I'd sit there for an entire week. And what we would do then is when someone had a free period or when someone was able to, that's when we rolled out kind of either the first, second or third stage of the project within group settings. And then finally offering multiple choices and providing space for methodological modifications. So just kind of bringing it back to kind of how we built a familiarization process. I think having strong foundations there allowed us to kind of engage a lot more with the young people and their choices and their voices of what they would like, and then also allow us to kind of make some modifications where needed. And then just some personal reflections. And from expected desire was kind of ensuring the ongoing assent and taking into account factors that were affecting the students. So some students may work better in the morning, some students may work better in the afternoons. Again, just looking back at the group dynamics. And some of the things I would have reflected on throughout the process was kind of my internal monologue. So as we were going on with this project, it's looking at kind of the critical reflection of the narrative guided by the student. So there's a photo here, which I think, this photo here, there's kind of the black, and then it looks out into the lighter area. I was talking to one student and I was like, this is absolutely fabulous photo. Why did you take this photo? And what does this photo mean to you? And they said, well, the learning centers to me are like the light at the end of the tunnel. And that was just something that's always stuck with me. But they didn't want to explore that further. So when they said that, they kind of withdrew a little bit and they were like, oh my gosh, why did I say that? I was like, no, like you're more than welcome to express how you're feeling. Thank you so much for sharing. Do you want to talk about that more? Or would you like to move on to something else? And they were saying, well, let's move on to something else. So that was kind of in my head, looking at how they were responding to the questions and even their body language as well. And then environmental stimuli, looking at prompts or distractions. So when we printed out some of the photos would have little tearing strips on either side of the photos. And for a few young people, they acted as like they were really distracting. They would focus on tearing the photos rather than looking at the photos themselves. Whereas for another young person, that actually helped them focus on the photo itself. So by tearing it, it drew their attention to the photography. And they were able to kind of sit down and talk about their photos while doing that, and I found that it did help them. And then just the student dynamics, are they empowering or demotivating? So yes, that is me. Thank you so much. And I suppose I do just want to say a big thank you to the funders for the project. So I wasn't funded for the first year. And Very, as a research group in the School of Education, they covered the cost for running it for the first year, which was great. And funded by Peter McVerry Trust and Research Ireland, and doing the PhD with UCD. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for the presentation. We are going to open now the discussion with questions and maybe some reflections from the group. Are there any questions, reflections, remarks? I have a couple of questions myself, but I will first let Gabby ask the questions. This is the supervisor, by the way.
This is the supervisor.
This is the supervisor, and that's why there's going to be a tricky question. I don't want to scare anyone in advance. And my camera is not working, so apologies that you cannot see my face. But one question that I think it's very valid when we think about these methods, it's how do you plan on analyzing the data, right? Because there you have presented a lot about the kind of the considerations for the implementation of the method itself.
Yeah.
But do you have any considerations on how you go and look at this data, how you're going to analyze it?
Yeah, Gabby, thank you so much for that question. So I have multiple different data points. So there's with the young people were given the options of having dictaphones on the first session when they're in their groups, and they were going around giving tours to their imaginary friends. In the second and the third settings, we'd have audio recordings of the group settings as well. And from kind of my own reflections, what I think is that there's a lot of meaningful quality data within the audio recordings that can be complemented by the photography. So that's kind of where I'm initially starting at. But I've also done a scoping review of kind of all the barriers and all the facilitators of being able to access and engage with education for young people with experiencing homelessness. So they're going to act as my kind of coding framework, and I'm going to do it inductively and deductively, allowing for additional themes to emerge from the findings from the young people. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
And sorry, I also have plenty of researcher observations for the background of how I'm going to look at analysing all this data as well.
Sorry, Carla, I thought you were clapping before. I didn't realize this was a...
Yeah, I was clapping and I was waiting. Don't worry. Well, it was kind of, well, first of all, thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. Photovoice has always been a methodology that intrigues me because all the data you can gather and how to do it and how to analyze it, that Gabriela already asked about it. But also, I'm asking about, do you think it's a methodology that fits within every age? Or it's just something targeted to young? Or in your expertise, what would you think?
From working with these young people, when I first went in, the staff were saying, oh, don't have high expectations. So they might not be interested. They don't get along with strangers. And by the end of the weeks, all of the staff were saying, wow, like I've never seen the students so engaged in projects like this. So I think, and there are other people within the school that have used it with much younger groups and also older groups. So I think it's a really good base that can be adapted for different age groups.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Hannah, you go first.
Hi, Sarah. Amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Really, really interesting. I was just wondering, on a practical level, given the kind of background of these young people, how did you deal with kind of issues around consent and kind of, or assent? I mean, some of them seem quite young. You said your age range was 13 to 17. So, and I imagine like some of them have quite tumultuous lives given their, use of the services. So was that kind of a challenge, or be interested?
It didn't necessarily come across as a challenge because I, like, in the practical space, I always left the door open. And I was always checking in with the young people saying, look, guys, this is something that you guys don't have to do. You can feel free to go whenever you want. There was also on-site social care workers and the teachers as well. So if they were to leave the room, I'd say, oh, I'd flag with one of the social care workers, just to let you know they've gone off, and they have kind of like a relaxing room. So they had the choice of kind of hanging out by themselves or coming and joining in the activity, and they could always dip in and out. So if they wanted to go out and take a break and come back. But I think the symbolism and like constantly just reminding them that the door is always open. So we're not closing this door. You guys are free to go whenever you want, and you don't have to partake. And so some young people like would have just done the photography side of it, and I would have handed them their photos, and then they weren't actually interested in talking about their photos. So I was like, absolutely, that's no problem. Thank you so much. Are you still happy for me to use the photos? And they're like, yes, absolutely. So I think it's just an integral part of the whole process. It's just always ensuring, and even like body language, and it's saying, does this young person feel comfortable being here? And I think that also comes with having the opportunity to kind of work with the young people over the 2 years, and you get to know them, and you just get to kind of see whether or not this is something that they'd like to do at that given moment. Or it was also like, oh, would you like to do it later on during the week? And so also giving them the options.
Cool. Thank you.
Can I also ask a question, Sarah, just about the methodology there? I'm not familiar with Photovoice. I've never used Photovoice. So I'm wondering if someone wants to start using the methodology, are the steps that you were showing there, is there, a handbook of what do you do at what stage, what sort of data are you collecting, what are the expectations and so on? Or is this a very fluid process?
I found kind of different journal articles that had used Photovoice, and there would have been not a very clear step-by-step by it. So the impression I got from reading those articles before I even went out was that it is a participatory method, so it is kind of guided by the people who are involved in the project as well. So I didn't want to go in, I tried to have a good plan and to kind of account for anything that could happen, but I didn't want to go in and say, this is the step-by-step and this is what we're doing.
And that's I'm just reflecting on different methodologies and participatory methodologies in particular. We all know that writing for grants funding is very important. Parts of the funding and the PhD is very important as well.
Yeah.
Part of that is having specific outcomes, milestones, and giving whoever is reading your proposal an idea of what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
How have you navigated that if the process is quite fluid?
I suppose as well with the way that the funding is, as I have different stakeholders. So there's different deliverables for different stakeholders. And maybe to start with the young people, what I found was the deliverable was the guidebook. And so for the young people, they had a guidebook that they also got at the end of the year that they could give to their friends. For, say, like the senior management, it's looking at assessing, and I don't like using the word assessing, because of the kind of the nature of and the dynamic and the environment of the space, and it's looking at kind of are these sort of spaces something that these young people are, that helps these young people, or are there areas that can be identified for future improvement? So that's, I think, where I'm going to come out with the data from the young people and the teachers and bring that up to the senior management of the organization. And I suppose looking back at the ethics application, and I'll have to, it was three years ago now as well. But it was, say, looking at it's a very under-researched area, and there's nothing really on these specific sorts of alternative learning centres. So it was finding out what's going on in these places, and identifying all of the different the governance and the young people's experiences and the teachers' experiences, for either kind of keep these places as independent, or is there learning experiences there for the wider learning sector in Ireland?
So in a sense, like I'm thinking, when you write a proposal, it has to be very specific. So you have to, in my mind, is the Photovoice, and you were saying the guidebook is something that they produce, that's an artifact that doesn't have to be necessarily a research output.
Yeah.
Have different types of artifacts. Is the Photovoice process a process that helps you collect important data?
Yeah.
Or is this the research instrument in itself?
So it's the data side of it. So it's navigating kind of all of these different learning challenges. So some young people say are almost like, from their own experiences, and if they're coming from backgrounds with experiences of trauma, would almost be afraid to go into different settings. So I was using Photovoice as a tool to foster their abilities to engage meaningfully in talking about their experiences of the learning centres.
Yeah, thanks. In my mind would be like, we're doing this, and then on top of that, we need a way to measure whether that has worked or not.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's as if you're teaching something and then you want to check whether this has worked or not. Mm-hmm. So I'm really struggling to see the Photovoice as the data in itself, and not as a process that could potentially generate data.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Sort of.
It's like when you're teaching something, and you know that you're fostering someone's skills.
Yeah.
But doing research on the teaching is adding on top of the teaching activity.
Yeah.
A questionnaire, an interview, an observation, something that gives you more information about that. And maybe having this think alouds with, I don't know, Gabby, I don't know if your hand is still up. If it is, just feel free to come in.
And sorry, Gabby. I was just going to say, just from what you were saying there as well, and it has come up before. It's like there was so much great feedback from this method, and I was looking at Photovoice as a pedagogical method, but we weren't looking at it. That's not the lens that we're looking at it through, and how we're using it for this specific project. But I feel like that's kind of something that can also be explored.
Thank you. Francesca?
And hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was worried about it. And thank you very much for your presentation, Sarah. It's very interesting. And this made me think about one kind of reality that I'm actually approaching now, because I'm working in this community, which is actually has a very part of the goals of this community are to face like school living from the student in disadvantaged areas. So I was wondering what kind of, I don't know if this is a kind of implicit question, but what are the expected results from this methodology, and then what do you think as part of the methodology itself yourself, because you were there and everything, what do you think is going to be like in terms of like your research question, the expected result? Just theoretically, like I'm not asking for like fact, but like I'm just curious about this.
Yeah, I suppose I could bring it back. Like, I don't want to infer anything from my data just yet, but just bringing it back to the scoping review, like internationally, there's a lot of different kind of variables that influence kind of engagement with education, and variables that inhibit it. And so there's a lot of basic things that are provided in these alternative learning centres, but there hasn't been enough research done on them to see whether or not that they are valuable within this given context. So like they have on-site psychotherapeutic supports. They have a bus that collects the children from their doors and brings them to to the schools and back. Like they have lunches, they have breakfasts. Like one of the things that came up was that they don't have to bring in school bags or pencils. They just have to show up. So it's looking at kind of this like very small cohort of young people who are still disengaging from schools at very young ages in Ireland, but seeing what are the specific barriers and facilitators that can maybe enhance their experiences of education.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So basically, it's working on how to involve them more directly inside the community and support them in terms of creating school, not just as a school, but as a supporting structure and environment for kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what I got. I think it's like
yeah.
that's the technique that using, like basically involving them in something that it's 360-degree and not just like coming to school and learn this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Any other questions? Kind of covered ethics, the process, data analysis. Can I ask why was there the question mark there in your title?
And I think that maybe goes back to like ongoing critical reflection and like even is this participatory if I've gone in with like even a small framework. So it's kind of, I think the question mark there was more so around like the constant reflection of like, are we fostering agency? Are we fostering voice? And like always kind of reflecting on the power dynamics there and how me going into that environment and working with these young people, is that fostering their voice? So that was kind of the question mark, because I feel like there's always a question mark.
Anna, yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, I had two questions. So thank you, Sarah, very much for your presentation. Two questions. I don't know if you analyzed the pictures themselves, or would it make sense to analyze the pictures, like to code the actual photos?
Yeah.
And the other question is, I'm sure I didn't get it. So about the voice part. So did they record themselves alone, or did you record the narratives in group setting or one by one setting?
So differently. So they would have gone off in pairs at the start. So say they have their cameras, and then I would have given the option of saying, oh, would you like to bring around a dictaphone with you and narrate kind of why you're taking certain pictures or what's your experiences of the school. So some of them said that they wanted to bring the dictaphone, some of them didn't. And then for sessions 2 and 3, there would have just been dictaphones on the tables. And so the young people would have been aware of the dictaphones, what the purpose of the dictaphones were. But like I think with anybody, if you say, oh, don't press this button, some people do still press the buttons. And then with regards to coding the photos, I'm not at that stage yet. I'm still doing the audios, but I have kind of two ideas in mind on that. So first one is kind of matching it with the codes that are from the scoping review and anything that comes up in the audios. And that would be kind of maybe looking at the people, who are the people in the photos, looking at kind of how many people took pictures of, like there's so many pictures of the tea and coffee station, and so how many people took pictures of the tea and coffee station. And so it's either looking at the themes that are coming up, or also maybe, or alongside the numbers of times that it comes up from different students' perspectives. But then as I'm saying this, I'm thinking out loud, and then I'm like, I don't want to I don't know if maybe counting and then equating that to importance is something. So it's just reflecting on that. So I haven't gotten to that stage just yet. So I think I'm going to put my head into the audios and transcribe everything and analyze the audios, and then incorporate in the pictures or do the pictures separately.
Thank you.
But sorry, actually, and then sorry, just even on that, because I was chatting to somebody from the School of Geography, and that what they did was the counting. So that they counted like how many green spaces there were, how many times this person came up in the photos. So the spatial geography.
Have you thought about maybe? Oh, sorry. I don't know if you thought something about doing like also participatory analysis of these photos.
Yeah.
Would be interesting.
Yeah, ideally I would love to do something like that. And we did include the young people. So the young people's coding of the photos themselves are also going to be included in that. So the young people would have grouped the photos in different ways. And then we have the audios of like how they grouped the photos and why they grouped the photos that way. So that's also another area that is going to be included in it. So like I've got my ceiling where it's like, yes, I absolutely would love to go back to all the young people and talk to them about it. And so it is hopefully part of the plan.
Can I just jump in out of ignorance and ask Anna, what do you mean by participatory analysis?
Yeah. For example, I like to invite them to code, like Sarah was explaining. I was thinking something about that. So have them group the photos or title the photos, or maybe to set like an exhibition, because when you set up an exhibition, then you have to narrate something with all the pictures. So maybe that's a good way to like kind of see how they structure all the picture in a storyline, for example.
Yeah, I hope to do something like that. I don't want to say anything or commit to anything without having plans in place.
And then, sorry, another thing I'm thinking, what's the sample size for this one now? How many young people have
33 young people. So there was 17 people that we got in the second year and the third year. So, and then we only did the second site in the second year.
And so then, for just from a methodological point of view, if you had something like an exhibition or something, you wouldn't be able to invite everyone, right? You would have to. Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't. I'd invite everybody.
And then if everybody comes, then who gets to talk and who gets to? That's just the struggles of a researcher. Yeah. And then if everybody do, then how do you capture that and how do you reflect that on the final output?
On a much smaller scale, that's something that we had to navigate with developing the guidebook of whose photos were included, whose weren't included. But it was kind of, and I think it lends into the benefits of that participatory process, and like me not being trying my best to not be the adult figure. And them deciding it and them agreeing. Like it was like one young person really didn't want, say, the photo of the toilet, but everybody else did. And it was kind of navigating that and saying, oh, well, look, how would you feel if just this one photo, we won't put in any more? Is everybody happy with that? But there is people that do want the photo in it. And it was coming to agreements on it. And so I would hope, and again, like I've no experience of that stage, but it would be a similar process if you were to do an exhibition or something like that.
So there's a little bit of collaboration skills there as well that they need to develop before, as a preparation of that, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's much easier if they know each other.
Absolutely.
Very well, yeah. Great. It's really exciting and messy, but all types of research are messy. Thank you, Anna. Any other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking how hard it would be, like, since I'm in that phase now, the ethics, to get the approval for this kind of project, because it looks a lot of relation with the kids, a lot of like exchange. How would you?
It was actually, I think again, like because I've worked for the organization for so long, I'm aware of all the different supports that are available within the organization. I'd know like of the sites and all the different kind of harms and risks from working already in those sort of settings. So it did, I had my experience to also lean on when doing the ethics application, which I think stood to us because there wasn't too long or there wasn't too many amendments that were requested to come back.
Okay, thank you. It's your story.
Well, if there are no other questions, just a note to say, Sarah, thank you so much for the presentation. I think this type of research is so much needed. It's really applied social sciences, research in social sciences, and you can see the outcomes of it, and you get you experience the benefits of it yourself as a researcher. It's very rewarding, I assume, I imagine.
It's great fun for everybody.
It's great fun, and it keeps you motivated and engaged. And it's very exciting, and I would like to know more about it. And that's a very good sign for a research method.
Oh, good.
I'm very curious to know more how it works. And yeah, just to say thank you for your time, and thanks for sharing. It's not an easy thing to stand in front of everyone and present.
Oh, thank you.
Just to say, the next presenter is with us today, Hannah Steins. She's going to be presenting on something completely different in February. We will announce the final date very soon through our newsletter. And with that, if Carla, you don't have any other notes or comments.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. Well, again, thank you, Sarah, to start this course. Method checks, we're a little delayed. It happens when changes happens. So thank you. To share that it is a new year, so if you have not renewed your early fees or subscription, just do it, because if not, you will stop receiving our emails. It's a shame. And that we are looking for a new jury coordinator in the 617 research methods. So if you or someone you know might be interested, so we already announced it in our latest newsletter. So just be welcome to present your candidacy, because we'll be very open and grateful to welcome you to the team.
Thank you, Karin.
Yeah, see you next month, right?
See you next month.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.